The White House is doubling down on a new border hoax. 2 years after falsely accusing border agents of whipping migrants, the administration is now falsely claiming Texas Governor Greg Abbott for the tragic drowning deaths of 3 migrants. Last week, a mother and her 2 children drowned in the Rio Grande while attempting to cross the border. The White House not waiting for the facts, instead blasting out a statement that claims that Texas officials, quote, blocked border agents from attempting a rescue by shutting down a part of a public park. And of course, the liberal media ate up every word.
In Texas, the Republican governor prevents federal officials from trying to rescue a woman and her 2 children who drowned trying to cross a river in Texas.
Agents were physically barred by Texas authorities from entering the area.
He's been talking about how Texas has done everything except shoot these migrants, and it almost sounded as though he was lamenting it, so he let them drown.
His troopers, his forces are preventing federal officials, law enforcement from saving a life or lives in this case.
These are families, these are mothers, children. I am actually just disgusted with where we have landed here.
But it was all a lie. Border Patrol was never blocked from saving them. Biden's own Department of Justice confirming the 3 migrants drowned 1 hour before Border Patrol even arrived at the gate to inform Texas. And Texas officials are asking the Biden administration to correct the record about the migrant drownings. But the White House is standing by the smear.
Our statement is consistent with DOJ's filing. As the DOJ filing said, there was an ongoing emergency situation that Border Patrol was blocked from accessing. There were other migrants in the water.
Then why wasn't that included in the statement?
There were other migrants in the water.
That's what you were referring to.
Our statement is very much consistent with DOJ filing. Anything else specific you want to know about that, I would certainly refer you to DOJ.
All right. Jesse, the White House is lying here like they lied about Whipgate a couple of years ago, and they get away with it, and there are no consequences. And most of the print media won't even write a correction.
No, they recycle the propaganda. That's the game. There's so many hoaxes just in the last couple of weeks. Remember Dictator on Day One, the SEAL Team 6 assassination squad, Mar-a-Lago's only $18 million. Biden only talks to Hunter's clients about the weather. Trump wants the economy to crash. I mean, that's just the last couple of weeks off the top of my head. Now you have that these people were drowning and Abbott blocked Biden's lifeguards from a rescue. We are going to face, Judge, such a torrent of disinformation this election year. It's going to be a struggle. And as they recycle the propaganda, they all tell us in the media, don't do your own research. Remember Phil Bump, Washington Post, the guy that scrambled out of the podcast when he didn't know what the heck he was talking about with the laptop? He just prints this piece today. Doing your own research is a good way to end up being wrong. Now, this guy's a journalist who believes everything the government tells him and then writes it all down. Philip Bump is always wrong because he never does his research. Now, as a journalist, I am constantly issuing clarifications when I get new information. Like if something is said by Harold or Jessica, and then in the commercial break we find out they're wrong, next block, issue a clarification for the sake of the show, because we don't want any disinformation out here. If Biden, Judge, really wanted to secure the border and stop the deaths, he would stop the asylum craziness. He would stop handing out free iPhones, bus tickets, and asylum to everybody in the third world. What they want to do, and this is not me saying this, this is the Democrats saying this, they want people to pick the crops, they want people to have babies, and they want to turn Texas blue. Again, not me saying it, that's them. And why are they attacking Greg Abbott? Because he's in a wheelchair? That's probably why they're doing this. Ableists.
All right, Harold, doesn't having an open border, an automatic catch and release with a bus, a plane, and a ferry available and at your service, doesn't that end up promoting illegal immigration and the deadly consequences that we're seeing here?
It's good to be here. 2 things. One, it does, all those things. I was pleased to see, I think the most important thing for me, and there's no excuse for when you can get things wrong, but when you're confronted with the facts, you should say the truth. Just like I think about Texas, the most horrible thing that's happened in Texas. One of the things, nothing to do with politics, it was that shooting at that school, and they didn't get the facts right at first. They kept telling things, and you and I were commenting about it in Uvalde, Texas.
Yeah.
So the White House should be candid about what they got right, what they didn't get right. What I'm most, and I hope you don't have to correct me on this, what I'm most concerned about in the coming hours, it looks as if Republicans and Democrats met at the White House in the last hour, and the Republican leadership in the House came out, and they generally speak, I think sometimes politicians do, in superlatives. They didn't this time. They came out and said, look, we stood our ground, we shared with the president what we wanted, and they made it sound like something positive might have happened, or they didn't say anything negative happened. And the Democrats came out and said something similar. If we want these things to stop, if we want a different policy, all the things we've talked about at this table, it's got to be our elected officials who come around the proverbial table at the White House and in Congress and get something done. So I'm encouraged by what they've done. I tell you, there's a guy, though, who got my blood rolling a little bit earlier, who I think does not have the right to be around a table in Congress. There's a congressman from Texas named Congressman Nels. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He was quoted a few days ago saying, let me tell you, I'm not willing to do too damn much right now to help a Democrat and to help Joe Biden's dismal approving ratings. I will not help the Dems try to improve this man's approval ratings. Why would I? Sir, you got elected to Congress. Any Democrat that utters this nonsense or Republican, Judge, you can all you want. I don't think this is what people in politics should be doing. You should always be trying to solve problems. I hope he comes to the table with his Republican friends and Democrat friends, and Democrats who make equally asinine comments, like we saw someone not wanting to correct the record here at the beginning of the show. You have to call balls and strikes everywhere. If we want answers to our border, Congress has to act and the president has to act.
Harold,
hopefully they will.
Are you saying that no Democrat ever said that he was going to criticize and stop Donald Trump from doing everything he could do during the Donald Trump years? Come on, don't act like it's just one side and not the other.
Well, Judge, not only am I not saying that, I'm criticizing Democrats. I criticize Karine Jean-Pierre.
Okay.
I call balls and strikes, and I think we all should.
All right. Dana, 18% approval rating Biden has on immigration. All he's got to do is enforce the law. He doesn't need Congress. And when Iowa's 40% immigration is the biggest issue, how much trouble is he in?
And also there was an informal poll taken amongst the Republican conference yesterday. Absolute number one issue is the border, way more than the economy, but they're not alone. The Democrats are joining them in that. And one thing that you could point to, so Kamala Harris was named the border czar 1,029 days ago. She goes on The View, like we're going to talk about that. This is not an issue that she's ever asked about or has to deal with. And it is the main issue driving their approval numbers down, and everything else is coming down along with that. Of course, immigration being a big issue as well. The only thing you have to do at the White House is acknowledge there's a problem and try to fix it. Why did you run for Congress anyway? But they have incentivized the migrants to come, and that is being helped also by blue state governors like Governor Newsom, who says, okay, well, free health care is here for you as well. Then you start to read some of these stories about how there's migrants standing outside in this cold with no coats. I have family that is helping in Denver, Colorado at nonprofits, trying to figure out a way, how can we get them some warm enough clothes? Because they care about the human condition. And the Biden administration is so willing to lie about their own citizens. You think about the Texas State Patrol or Border Patrol, the state folks there that they were accusing of letting these people die, they're American tax-paying citizens. And you think about Governor Abbott, he's put up with so much, and especially being attacked because he's in a wheelchair. That is just a little bit
too much
too far. Anyway, I would just say that these poll numbers, 18%, imagine just trying even to get it to 30%. That would just be like a little drop in the bucket, but they're not willing to do anything. If I were the White House, I would have said, our bad, sorry, got bad information, and then you can move on. Now they won't be able to.
No, and they won't. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, if I didn't know any better, I think the White House has a pretty low opinion of Americans who actually every day try to save the lives that are put at risk by the White House. So I go back and I listen to this story, and it's obviously, we go through a lot of these stories, but it reminds me that the two most consequential words of the last 8 years was fake news. Because I think that you can't listen to these stories again the same way. When you hear them differently. When I see the montage of them feigning outrage, I know they don't care. That MSNBC crew of clowns, they don't care about those victims, right? Those are just products for their script. And they're grateful that they've got it and they can create a script around it. The good news is, I don't think the lie can travel around the world before the truth comes out. I think right now we have an educated public that can see this. Even though it seems like the Dems have hired Jussie Smollett as a campaign advisor, because every single one of their stories is a hoax. It's a hate crime hoax. And if you accuse somebody of a crime that has some kind of racial component, wouldn't the hoax also be a hate crime? What about the people that are accused of this stuff? What about the Whipgate guys? They never got a formal apology. I mean, you could conceivably ruin people's lives by saying those 3 people died on your watch. That could ruin somebody's life. Why is there no punishment for that? I don't get it. But these stories repeat themselves because, like you said, there's no disincentive. You rely on the media to amplify the story while bearing the debunking. So these scumbags at MSNBC can destroy a person's life, call them a murderer, but when they're exposed, they don't even make a retraction. Or if they do, it's days away, or it's on page 23, B7, whatever. And yet, if any of us said anything, or any politician, Republican, said anything that would be slightly problematic, they would ruin you in an instant. They would ruin you in an instant. In this case, they say some really horrible things. I am heartened, though, that this isn't going to fly anymore this year. You look at X's community notes. You see how quickly people respond. They can't get away with this. I couldn't watch that montage with going, no one's taking that seriously. No one believes that.
The only reason it traveled so quickly was because it blew up over the weekend.
Yeah.
Because they would have asked them the next day at the White House briefing.
Also, Shifty Shift fundraised off it immediately.
Of course.
Very good. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.